This is the second great Eakins clinic painting. He made only two, and in this one, almost everything is different. The terms are different, for starters, in that he was approached by the graduating class of 1889 in order to make a commemorative portrait of Dr. Hayes Agnew for graduation. And Eakins, who had, in the interim between 1876 and 1889, had been fired from the Pennsylvania Academy. That was in 1886, and he had gone into a terrible slump. He was not painting much, he got very depressed, and he was just coming out of that slump when the students from the University of Pennsylvania showed up with several $100s in their hands that they had raised and asked him to paint a single portrait of Agnew, about like this. And Eakins was so excited by doing the Gross Clinic kind of a project again that he said, I'll take your money, but I want to do a big picture, and it's not going to cost you any more, but it's just interesting to me. So he undertook the expansion of the commission in order to work out again all of the same issues that he had undertaken in the 1870s. But here, I mean, as you can see, everything is different. Insofar as it is exactly the same commission, a teaching doctor in surgery, he has tried to work as many changes as he can. The other thing that's held steady is here's Eakins again, in the same place in the canvas as he was in the other picture. Dr. Agnew knew very well about the Gross Clinic. It was a famous picture, certainly by then, and he specifically asked to not have blood on him. So that's also different. He said, I don't want to be covered with blood, and so the blood is very discreet, and Eakins kind of snuck it in there anyway. I mean, I think actually Agnew would have liked it if he had even less. So that's different in the treatment of the doctors and in the treatment of Dr. Agnew himself. All right, what else is really different about this picture? The audience is much closer. All right, I just told you how this story began. That is, the students commissioned the painting. So the students are in the picture, and they came to Eakins' studio and posed for him. So everybody who put $50 into this project got themselves in the picture. So right away, it changes the whole atmosphere because you feel the presence of the students. I mean, you or I can cruise through this like every one of us who's ever had a lecture and watched someone sleep in the lecture. You can find the person who's not paying attention here. And so that narrative is going on in the background, and it is much busier than the background of the Gross Clinic. And this is Nurse Clymer, the first graduate of the nursing program at the University of Pennsylvania. Nurse Clymer, with a very distinctive nursing cap. These caps were different for every school. So you identified yourself by your cap. And she is right in the thick of medicine. Now, Eakins himself said that he didn't think any woman would ever become a great surgeon. And he also said he didn't think any woman would become a great artist. So this is a kind of a statement for Eakins to bring Nurse Clymer forward about the change in the medical profession and the arrival of women in the business. And as I said, he insisted on equal access to resources for the students at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. Women's classes in those days were segregated, but nonetheless, the women could take every single part of the curriculum, which was not true in Paris. I mean, Mary Cassatt went to Paris and she could not enroll at the École des Beaux-Arts because women were not allowed. But in Philadelphia, women could take every single class that men could take at the Pennsylvania Academy. And this, even though he said, I don't think women will ever be very good. But they will be good enough that it is worthwhile allowing them to be as excellent as they can be. This is also a mastectomy, which is very different from the surgery in the Gross Clinic, in that mastectomy was almost always mortal. I mean, your chances of surviving were tiny for breast cancer in 1889. So in a way, this is a really scary and sad story, and in a way also much more shocking than the Gross Clinic, because you really see the patient. You see her face, she's a real person, and you see her breast, which is in a way more private and shocking than just seeing a kind of bony shank of a teenage boy. So that this picture in a way, is even more aggressive than the Gross Clinic in getting the surgery out there. But it was, in fact, one of Agnew's specialties, and again, a teaching opportunity where he is shown instructing his students. The frame is, the Eakins frame in the Gross Clinic is the original frame, and this is also the original frame with the inscription in Latin that Eakins himself wrote. Eakins spoke 5 languages, and this tells you that he was a dear teacher. I mean, the translation of it is an homage to his lucidity and inspirational qualities as a teacher. And indeed, this picture was put on the stage at the Academy of Music for graduation. Penn's graduation was held at the Academy of Music in those days, and the curtain was drawn, and this picture was unveiled to ovations, and Dr. S. Weir Mitchell, whose picture is in the other room there, accepted this painting on behalf of the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania at the Academy of Music. So this picture, in an interesting way, got a completely different reception than the Gross Clinic. Now, over time, had we gotten used to it, or was it because it was being presented to an audience of doctors and medical students and their families who were completely prepared to understand the context of this picture? Very different than an audience that, at least the centennial audience, might have been women and children and so forth, who were not so inured or so prepared, one might say, for the violence of surgery right in their face. But in the same way, you are involved, you become a participant in the surgery. The light source is different, but also the amount of white in the picture just is a light source of its own. So it creates this sense of clarity and of lucidity that's very different from the Gross Clinic, which has this kind of mystery by comparison.